people come up and say, oh, you did this, you were the first. I have to say, Kraftwerk, they were the ones who really did it.
Kraftwerk is definitely, if you have to say electronic music, they would be the godfather or the god or the creator, you know. In my opinion, I would definitely have to go with that. I mean, even still today, you can play their stuff. I just bought a remix, and you can still play it. You can still play it, and it go pound for pound with any new record out there, and people still will respond mad. Quality stuff.
First, I want to know who was these funky white boys from Germany that had this futuristic sound. When I first heard Trans-Europe Express, I mean, I just went crazy and started getting it jammed at every party that we played in the Bronx. And it was the Zulu Nation that pushed the hell out that record that just caught on like hellfire with the black and Latino community. And I thought this would be the music for the future. So once I got into Trans-Europe Express, I started digging up a lot of other Kraftwerk records like Robots, Autobahn. So I looked around and started saying, I don't see no black electronic groups. So when Kraftwerk came out with Numbers, I said, yeah, that's where the electro funk would come.
When I moved to New York and started hanging out with Bam, Trans-Europe Express was really one of his favorite records. And I think some of the reasons why, it was a drum machine. No rock groups and no soul groups really were using drum machines at that time. So the beat was really steady, they could mix to it, and it was an interesting sound. I mean, it was a really different sound.
This record made my job easier. This record allowed me to go to the bathroom. This record allowed me to go get a soda. I can play it from and just go take a walk because it was funky. It didn't make sense to cut this record, to be DJing it. It DJ'd itself.
I also think that Kraftwerk made very interesting music. The drive for unusual forms and surprise. So this aspect of openness of the young character is what I like.
I love Kraftwerk. I mean, certainly some of Kraftwerk's albums are some of my all-time favorite albums, you know, like Man Machine and Computer World. I think those are remarkable, wonderful records.
They found a way to make music with machines and actually were proud of it. They won't try to hide it. I think Kraftwerk's music is very cold, but it's also very, very warm. And I think they reached a very interesting balance that hadn't been reached before between the two.
Where was I when I heard Kraftwerk? Well, I think the first time I was in my mother's house, and Juan came over to my house and picked me up. Well, I was living with my mother. I was 13 years old, and they picked me up. Juan used to take his father's car at 13 years old and go for like joyrides. And he picked me up, and he had this stuff in the car on an 8-track tape, and that was my first experience. You know, and that, believe it or not, the same day I heard Funkadelic. What a day! For the very first time.
What a day!
For the first time in my life, I was like, what? You know.
When I heard Kraftwerk in 1975, it was like a revelation. It was like, ah, that's really cool, and I want to do that.
One of the biggest shocks was the discovery, after we'd been into German electronic music and all the weird crap we could find, that maybe there were other people who'd been listening to the same stuff.
Our influences are mostly non-musical ones. Musical influences that are mostly German and surely not English.
Kraftwerk, they were very into the Beach Boys. And what they liked about the Beach Boys was that when you heard a Beach Boys record, it sounded like California. So they thought, okay, well, we'll do something that sounds like Germany.
This right here is Autobahn. This is the one. It's a bit shocking at the age of like 14 to be checking out that. Man Machine, this was probably the one that really flipped me. This flipped me. This changed my life right here. This one. But that's not the one. Trans-Europe Express as well. Sweet. I mean, super like alien and just like makes me feel like I'm on another planet. But the one that flipped me, the one that truly like put me on another planet, I think was probably Computer World. You know, so I'm gonna stick it in here real quick, just so we can get an idea of what's going on here, because that was the one that put me on the Twilight Zone, for sure. Check it out. This was like the level of like, I finally felt like there was something that made me feel I could really start to identify with. It wasn't just a feeling of like something cool or some sort of thing I really wanted to dance to. This was as if it was on a mission.
The importance of Kraftwerk can't really be overstated. Making music with these machines, you know, without drummers and guitarists, it was revolutionary. And now that's how 99% of pop records are made.
Yeah, I mean the Kraftwerk thing is, you know, an obvious point of reference, but I think what we're doing is also like continuing a tradition and like a format for electronic music. It's just like, you know, they kind of established a format for an electronic pop band in the same way as, for instance, the Beatles established a format for the guitar pop band.
When something comes from abroad, it's always more exotic, and for us this was an exotic thing. But I think here in Detroit too, because we're used to the concept of automobiles being manufactured by robots, you know, this was futuristic to us, but it was also something that we could relate to because of coming from Detroit and it being a manufacturing town.
Here in Detroit, you can go to a tit bar and see some girls shaking it, and the music you hear is definitely influenced by Kraftwerk. If not, it's a sample from Kraftwerk. If you go to like a regular bar or something, you might hear it in the background. It's definitely part of Detroit.
What happened was, Rick and I, as kids, always loved bands like Kraftwerk. So when Acid House came along, it was like the roots of our childhood.
I remember we became friends with Karl some years ago, and he was telling me when they first played at the Apollo in uptown New York, and how I don't think there was any white faces in the audience at all, you know, which really connected with them, that they'd made this music that was seriously crossover. And when you listen to Computer World, that is such a funky album. The spaces that they leave, what they don't play, is so it's funk, really. It's machine funk.
You get a lot of white kids asking black kids, "Is this a black style of music?" And it's almost like there's always trying to be some kind of connotation put on the music. But to answer your question, it'd be stupid for any race to claim any kind of music. Techno, the influences that we had were both black and white. I mean, Kraftwerk was the people we grew up with, so they're obviously German, you know, German descent. So by coming over here and us listening to it, and by us listening to black-based music like Parliament and Funkadelic and all those kind of bands, you mix your own, you know, concoction, and it comes out. If it's more funky, then so be it. But I mean, if you were to do a really good techno record, there's no way you're going to be able to sit here and tell me that if you didn't know who it was, you'd be able to say this guy's black or white. It depends on your influences. If the white guys listen to some same stuff I was listening to, it'd probably sound the same exact way.